Crash Bandicoot. Now that's a big name, huh? It's certainly a series of well-regarded classics. Even some of the people I know who weren't around when the series started or are more drawn to other genres enjoyed one or more games from the original trilogy, and speak highly of them. Me personally, wasn't necessarily a huge fan, more of a Spyro guy, but I thought Warped was neat and I understand where the love comes from. The series has had a few ups and downs after the original trilogy, but after a sequence of mixed sequels, cameos, silence, and eventual remastering, we have Crash 4, It's About Time. The games got my attention after multiple reviews started spewing various versions of "It's like the old games," both negative and positive. From what little experience I have, it certainly feels about as I remember the older games and their remasters playing. Loose platforming controls with tight precision requirements, where even the most basic jumps and smaller obstacles can feel harrowing with the penalty of instant death hanging over every action. As you make your way through levels of varying lengths and themes, occasionally broken up by bonus sections that feel like extensions of the levels, endurance rounds, or tight sequential puzzles. Obviously, I'm no expert, so if there are smaller differences to feel or something in how the game plays that isn't one-to-one with the originals, I'm not the person that would notice it. But as an outsider looking in, it appears that the foundation is adequate enough. What did strike me as different is the larger presence of story content. While relatively brief, there are cutscenes and character moments throughout each segment, and it feels noticeably hammy, like they dialed up most of the characters' quirks and expressions. Not the biggest deal, but it stuck out. The story is basic, and you shouldn't really expect mastercraft writing from Crash Bandicoot. The game is a direct sequel to the third game, Warped, with the same entourage of villains returning for revenge, only now with the time and space fractured. Crash and his sister Coco must find the powerful sentient quantum mask in order to set things right and repair the dimensions. These masks tie into Crash 4's main gimmicks. After finding them, each one will occasionally show up in different levels, giving players a power they can activate for limited segments to overcome obstacles. Some of these are natural challenges like slowing time and swapping objects in and out of existence, while the others feel inconsistent, like inverting gravity and using dark matter for a powered-up spin move. Other than that, Crash 4 introduces wall running, which is fine, although there are more than a few instances where it feels inconsistent. Outside of minor story content and a crash course of the new mechanics, the game doesn't waste any time in getting you started, opening with one easy level to give you a grasp of the returning controls and quickly riding ship to a more familiar difficulty. The pace remains the same for the rest of the game, and doesn't hold your hand when introducing new gameplay elements. Now, single-player only games have a lot of hurdles to overcome in this day and age. The older formulas and the rewards, as functional as they are, lack staying power with modern audiences due to a relatively small amount of content. Crash 4 is a shorter title, even when compared to other games in the series. It gets its substance from multiple ways and multiple reasons to go back and replay every level as you clear each part of the map, with new perspectives where you play as other characters, and inverted versions of the same levels. The series' standard goals of collecting gems and relics remains, with goals of destroying crates, keeping deaths to a minimum, finding hidden gems in each level, and setting records in time trials. The difference in Crash 4 is that these treasures will give you rewards in the form of costumes, and depending on your performance as you progress through the level, flashback tapes that unlock what are essentially self-contained bonus levels will also be available to collect. With all the returning functions, all the new gimmicks, and understanding the goals, how is the game? Good for the most part. The game feels its best when you are fully trusting of your jumps and moving through the levels without hesitation, which is possible on most levels. Obviously, this runs counter to the goals of destroying all the crates and locating hidden treasures, but doing everything in one run isn't necessarily for everyone, as you'll either be running through the game once and have no need for the rewards, or you'll be making return trips anyway as the game gives you more to do in the areas you've already passed. Overall, the game holds up. You either like the style or you don't, but there is one issue that sticks out. The game occasionally struggles with perspective. I'd say it's mostly the busy and sometimes muddled art style clashing with how the camera is positioned. But the way some of the new mechanics are implemented doesn't help either. In particular, the wall running and the inversion power. Both make it difficult to see when exactly is the best time to jump or where you are going to land after you commit to it despite the marker showing where you'll land. Some would say this is part of the challenge. I disagree. But many of the new gimmicks are placed in smaller segments or side missions, with traditional gameplay taking the spotlight. Crash 4 aims to be faithful to a platforming style that isn't really around anymore, and while some will find nitpicks to have, the only real issues it has are curtailed by its relative safeness in that overall design. At its core, the game has the right substance to be a modest sequel to the older Crash games. Given the unique position it's in, you could even look at it as a sequel to the remaster collection. I think it succeeds, but obviously standards are a little different, and some will find the available content lacking. Even so, I'd say it's worth it for anyone who is waiting for a new sequel or just waiting to try something new.